interesting. Every time you find a gold farmer, you look at the attributes that make up the actions that he's doing. You look at, you know, what IP ranges are they coming from? How are they creating usernames? How are they creating passwords? Where, you know, what part of the site are they entering from? You capture all these different data points and then you say, oh look, I have this many accounts coming from there. You stop it.
This Marquee Dragon video is sponsored by Shattered Crystal, game codes and items.
Hello, I'm Marquee Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life. And today I've got George, and it's Reggie?
Reg.
Reg. Okay, I know that's what all your friends call you.
It is.
So, Reg, tell us what it is you do.
I am the Director of Operations for Nickelodeon Kids and Family Virtual Worlds, where I currently run the support teams, your international teams, and your production teams.
Okay.
I have about 8 years of experience in the industry, and it's been every few years that I've had a new opportunity to work on a new online game.
Yeah, cool. And George, how about your experience in this industry?
George Lovier, I've been in the industry for about 15 years, working on inside of games as an engineer, but also online games for about 12 years. Worked on over 20 MMOs in one faction or another.
Yeah. So I take it both of you guys like your jobs.
Yes.
I say I have one of the best jobs a technical person can have in the world.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, the most interesting, and there's never a dull moment. Every day it's changing.
Yes, the parties.
The parties are not bad.
Never a dull moment.
I'm thinking more along the lines of day-to-day activities at the office.
Oh, you know, well, obviously I'm thinking different. But anyway, I digress. So, you had mentioned that something you do has to do with analytics, statistics.
Well, everything that you do in online games come down to the numbers.
Okay.
You start with your funnels, who am I bringing to the site and how am I getting them into the game, and then where am I losing them in the game, what are they doing in my game, how are they doing it in my game, why are they doing it in my game? Those are the different areas that everybody tends to look at when they're trying to drive revenue and they're trying to provide a good service to all of their customers. So understanding different data points is key now. And early on, about 80 years ago, no one was really thinking in that space. I just want to make a good game. If I make a good game, they will come. Now everybody's come and everybody's fighting for a market share, so it's not just enough to have a good game anymore. It's about the experience that you're providing to your users.
Well, yeah, if it's not fun, forget it.
Well, you could have a fun game,
Is there
but
a
if it's
statistic
not,
for fun? Can you measure that?
You can measure mass reaction, but you can't measure fun.
Okay.
If everybody is doing it, doesn't necessarily mean it's fun. It just means everybody's doing it.
You can measure unfun. When you
can.
do something and people leave, that is readily apparent.
That is unfun.
That is unfun.
And
you can measure what's affecting people's experiences and why they're leaving, but you can't necessarily measure why they're coming.
You can also measure when somebody does something over and over again. That usually means they're enjoying it, or they wouldn't do it a second time.
Either that or they're like a bot or a gold farmer.
That is a very fair assumption.
So, what is the actual term for looking at this data to learn information about it?
Data analysis.
Data analysis.
Yep.
Okay.
Same as
changed.
enterprise. Same as
Absolutely.
same as you'd find on Wall Street.
Okay.
Often the same tools.
A lot of the same tools. Although I have to be honest, I think the game industry tools are actually a little better than what you're now using for, like, for example, business objects. Of course, you could throw it on top of any database and any data source, but right now there's a lot of web-based tools that are coming straight out of the game industry that are much better at finding your pots of gold.
Yeah.
Yep. I heard that Facebook is generating more metrics data than the New York Stock Exchange on a daily basis, and Twitter
Well, the New York
generates.
Stock Exchange doesn't have 500 million people using it either.
But they do
We would
several. Yeah, but they can do trillions of dollars worth of money each day. So,
True.
what's important?
The
To
money.
me, yeah.
It's all about
yeah, that's what it boils down to is the money.
and capturing the data points there. And I mean, if you think back to Facebook, you can also look at the presentation that we had here by Roger Houston
By the way,
from
we're
Disney.
at GDC in Austin, so it's the GDC Online.
GDC Online.
Which is referring to a presentation, yeah.
Yes, Roger did a presentation where he said he's capturing 40 gigs of data every single day.
Wow.
It was
That's where the multi-terabyte drives start coming in handy.
Indeed.
And not only multi-terabyte drives, just new ways of dealing with data. So 40 terabytes, actually, that
Oh,
was
I didn't
public.
say 40 terabyte. I said 40 Gs.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot of data, though.
That daily, and that's not the largest one.
Oh, not even by a stretch.
Yep. And
If
so
you think about all of the online social games and how many people are actually hitting them, if you look at the Disney properties, they're kids and they only have limited time to play them. If you look at the social games, those people are on every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, generating different pieces of actions that are being captured so they know whether they want to go ahead and create additional content in that area.
every click is
you do.
recorded.
I know just in our online operations that we do for the sales that we do, we record a lot of stuff, but it can get unmanageable.
Yep.
Because the data just gets so huge.
And then you have analysis paralysis, where people stop making decisions just because there's too much data, which you don't want to get into that. So you want to have
that's
sure.
like delete, okay, start over.
And that's why there is a growing industry of companies that are creating custom tools for social media, social games, and also a lot of those big enterprise analytics applications are coming into the social media and being leveraged to be able to manage the amount of data, because you've got to collect it, you've got to analyze it,
Yep.
and then
You have to put a context around it.
and report it.
Absolutely.
There's people making decisions, and the data doesn't go straight to the people making decisions. It gets analyzed first.
So I did a previous interview with this guy named Jared, and he's a professional gold farmer. It's not really what he calls himself. He calls himself a broker of currency. Never mind that it's gold coins in World of Warcraft or something like that. So how would you combat somebody like this with your statistical analysis?
So it's interesting. Every time you find a gold farmer, you look at the attributes that make up the actions that he's doing. You look at, what IP ranges are they coming from? How are they creating usernames? How are they creating passwords? Where, what part of the site are they entering from? You capture all these different data points, and then you say, oh, look, I have this many accounts coming from there. You stop it. The next day, they modify their approach, so it's a never-ending battle. But you do start to see some of the same characteristics, and you look for your outliers. And you say, suddenly I have and you have to monitor your population on a daily basis and look at your outliers. If you find that you suddenly have 2 people on the ends of the curve that weren't there yesterday, and suddenly those ends of the curves are now as high as the top of your curve, and you have 3 peaks, that's probably something you want to look into. So you're constantly looking into anomalies. And the data points that you're looking at in those anomalies may be one thing one day and completely different the next, because they're modifying their approaches and you're modifying yours.
Right.
It's not something you can automate.
It's totally cat and mouse.
It
and
absolutely
sometimes
is.
the mouse chases the cat.
And then you have to combat people leaving your company, because when people leave your company, they leave with information on how you're doing this.
True. Yes.
So, those are the kind of things that you have to watch out for. And if you can look at your data points and suddenly you see data points being exploited, additional information has gotten out and you've got to plug a hole.
So, and when you say about people leaving the company, are you talking about somebody leaves the company, gives some sort of information on how to defeat the system, and then puts it to use?
It's not necessarily that. They could be having a casual conversation out at dinner one night and they're like, remember this one time, and then that gets exploited. Or they go, hey, you should go check out these forums, or, oh, you're not going to believe what's happening here or there. I mean, those are the kind of things that when you're talking to your employees and you're saying, we have to make sure that they understand that this is confidential information, it should never leave, when they're doing their exit interview. These are the kind of things you can't release to the public. They're not to be discussed in general conversation, etc., because they will be exploited by anybody who wants to take advantage of your game. It's not just gold farming, it's anything that's inside of your game. It's gameplay, it's game mechanics. And
they
game
could
designers
just use it to win the game.
Exactly.
Instead of
They can also use it to launder money.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yes.
We've worked with several
Money
companies that actually have worked with the FBI to catch international money launderers and even local money launderers.
So let me ask a question about that. When you talk about having law enforcement involved, can you tell me about a specific situation where this has happened and how?
I can't name the company, but there is a not a social game, but a very popular casual game that's played online. That they have a very good relationship with their local FBI office, and this started one day when the FBI actually showed up, and under the RICO laws, they can actually come in and ask to look at your books. And if you're a social game and somebody's using you to actually launder money, you're liable. So they actually did the right thing, and they started working with the FBI, and their financial department is a lot of analytics and 2 really, really good forensic financial analysts. And their point of pride is they have actually got 7 people currently in jail that were using their game to launder money.
Wow.
There was also some public press around the fact that Linden Labs was being used as a potential laundering scheme, and that was not widely, but that was publicized.
I did see some stuff on that.
Yeah, and that's fairly common. Anytime a market exists where you can turn real money into something else and then turn that thing back into
money.
And not just money here, another thing that virtual worlds are really good for is you can put money in one country and take it out in another country with almost zero audit trail. And that's ideal for money laundering.
Yes.
And that's where it starts getting,
we're
in the games industry.
Because then you're not just responsible to the players.
No.
You're also then responsible to the government who comes asking
and
questions.
multiple governments.
Yes.
And we're in the
Very
games
double.
industry, and this is serious cloak and dagger stuff.
Yeah. No wonder the tools are getting better.
Tools are getting better.
So now, I believe you mentioned that you work a bit with kids' games.
I do.
And so how can, well, let's say that there's somebody who's wanting to exploit children in one way or another. Can you use the data to pick up on those people as well?
As the tools are definitely getting better in analytics, they are getting significantly better in that space as well. Nothing is ever 100% safe. However, this provides us a good safety net to catch the anomalies. You've got companies out there like Inversoft with ClinSpeak, you've got Crisp Thinking, you've got Lithium Technologies, and they're all doing a lot of data chugging on context. So it's not necessarily about the number of messages that you're sending through, it's about the meaning of the messages that you're sending through. It's about the context of conversations now. And that's the way that people are looking at things. And that also goes back to the money laundering. It isn't just the transferring of gold. What are they saying before they're transferring the gold?
So
what
the
is initiating
statistical
the
logs
transfer?
even capture the chat logs.
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought about that. I was just thinking about actions, like I'm going here mining with my bot and getting the ore and going and smelting it into gold or whatever.
They're absolutely looking, and it's looking at the velocity of the messages, it's looking at how often they're resent, it's looking at when they're being sent, it's looking at who is sending what, who's receiving what, who overheard what. These are the kind of tools that are out there now so that we can look at things like cyberbullying, we can look at things like, is a child being approached online, is a child being pursued by their peers. Those are the kind of things that these tools, not only are they good for finding out anomalies with money laundering, they're also good for finding out things with child safety.
Trolling is a pretty easy behavior pattern to detect.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
a set of keywords. It's a set of
absolutely.
keywords, it's a set of frequency of messages, and then a set of behaviors. So you get maybe a couple of keywords, you get rapid fire messages followed by a set of player on player behaviors, and that kind of basic trolling and griefing is a fairly easy pattern to detect.
Really? That's pretty interesting.
It also increases the quality of the experience the players are having, because you no longer have people spamming the channels because you can detect them. You no longer have trolls posting ads about Viagra because you can detect those kind of things and prevent them from even going up. Those are the kind of things that these tools are now using. It's developing context as well as quantity. If I see you're posting X number of times over the course of a period, it's the same thing with gold farmers. They're going to change their behavior, but then your tools are also going to change with their behavior.
With these tools, is it typical in your experience that these anomalies that you find in there will go for a human review, or is there like automated actions that are taken?
There's multiple ways of doing it. It's all about, you have to have a philosophical approach at your company. It has to be a heart-to-heart conversation. What are we actually allowing in our conversation? How strict are we getting? Do we want to prevent this and then have a human review? My personal approach is to take the stringest possible manner and say, capture the behavior, automate the behavior, hand it off to a human being. Stop anything that might be suspect and then have someone review it. It's the same thing with gold farming. That's why you have your forensic accountants there looking at
That's
it.
why gold farmers commonly talk about like a 24 and a 72-hour ban, which is just temporary. where they're like going, well, it looks like it, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's let them mine just a little bit more and we'll find out.
Like, let's go look and see. Let's physically go in and look and see if this guy is a bot. Because a bot won't talk to you if you're trying to talk to them.
Not always the case, but
well, you know, they are getting more sophisticated. As our tools get more sophisticated, so do theirs.
I met another guy who had a pager hooked up to him that any time that one of the accounts had someone talk directly to them, a pager would go off showing a number of which machine it was, and he'd hop right on there and answer him.
Well, you know, if again, as one tool gets better, the other tool gets better, and it only benefits the entire community, because as our tool sets get better, so do their experiences.
So what's some of we've talked a bunch about negative stuff. What's some of the really positive stuff that's happened?
Community, the community managers, all big social games and MMOs have a team of people that's responsible, and it's their job to work directly with the community. These people are often have direct access to customer support as well as the game designers. They're the human in the loop of filtering all the metrics that are coming in and telling game designers in human words what's working and what doesn't. Trying to kind of filter out the noise. There'll be a passionate few that want the game to go in this direction, and then 99% of the people that kind of want it, the silent majority that may want it to go another direction.
It's like the 80-20 rule of 20% are going to bitch no matter what.
It's 95-5 at this point. I mean, really, that's the kind of stuff that your vocal majority is actually on your forums, and they're telling you what they want, and they're saying build this, and then 90% of your players are leaving because they're like, we don't want that. It's an opportunity to look at it from your community managers have always been saying, how do I quantify this event to get the money to be able to do it? It's always been looked at as something like an anomaly, like, oh, it's a whim, go try it. If it works, great, we can't quantify it. Now you can. You can look at it and say, hey, we had 100,000 people come to this, and you know what, 10% of them converted into a microtran, or 10% of them converted into a subscription. The retention rate went on for 6 months for people who participated in that event. So community managers are now armed with information that says, hey, we should do this event. Oh, look, it worked last year, and this is how it worked. Instead of just, hey, the community wants this, it's a good idea. So, I mean, those are the ways that you're...
Because you want to know if that's real.
You know. And it's changing how games are being designed. I call it the tyranny of the ego of the game designer. And now game designers have real data live from what the players are doing. And there's a term called multi-factor testing where people will actually try out multiple game design ideas at the same time.
And the multivariant testing in our web pages.
Exactly. And so same thing for web design, same thing for game design. Does this quest work? Are people completing it too quickly, meaning maybe it's too early? Are people dropping out of it? Maybe it's too hard.
Where are they falling in the grind? Are they saying, you know, I like grind and I'll go so far, at which point I completely drop off, or I will push over that hump and I will get to the top? I mean, it was subscriptions that was so important because it was average subscriber life. Every person counted. Now it's microtrans. How long are these people staying? Are they coming back? Everyone puts out their numbers of monthly uniques. Monthly uniques are not important. It's the people who return, because trust is where they spend money. If they don't trust you and they don't return, they're never going to plop down their credit card.
Correct.
So what you need to know is, why don't they trust me? What aren't they doing? What part of my site haven't they seen that the people who are spending money have seen? And how do I get them there? And game designers love it, because they go say, hey, could you add that logging event in? I want to see how it does. It's their way of doing a hypothesis. Did it work? Oh, it didn't work. You know what? I got to go another direction.
Right.
And because we're online, we can keep publishing.
They know when they win.
It's their leaderboard.
Yeah.
It is. They're like, look at how many players I got to my side of the screen. Look at how many are on yours. You know, you make it into a competition.
Cool. I got one other area that I wanted to ask you guys about, and that is, I'm sure that stats can be used to see how the servers are doing, how the flow of everything.
So metrics. We've talked a lot about metrics being used for analyzing player behavior. The players is using a set of technologies, and a fairly complex set of technologies, and we're starting to mix player behavior with traditional systems. Administrators have always had statistics that they've used for managing uptime,
Right.
CPU, memory
Right.
utilization, I/O, all of that kind of basic stuff. In an MMO, you can have hundreds or thousands of servers connected to millions of players everywhere on the planet. It's a huge, complex thing.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Well, the way I like to talk about it is an MMO like World of Warcraft is the most complex technical thing humans have ever done in history, period.
Wow.
That's children, but okay.
Okay. And so we're getting metrics that are telling us how our users are using this system, and we're finally starting to blend the metrics we've always had about how machines work together. So I can now, for the first time, know when 50 players do this, I get this latency spike, and so I need to change this piece of code. Or, if I get everybody that does a Crossroads raid, this server goes down. So I need to change how
Yeah,
this
you do
is.
need to know stuff like that. I can see how that would be
And
necessary.
so the same information that's going to community managers, game designers, fraud analysis is now going to the architecture, the operations guys, the guys that keep the systems running. And we're really starting to see a dramatic improvement in uptime. Social games don't ever go down.
Oh, I remember the first games
Yeah.
that
Yes.
time warp, because I didn't even get them backed up fully,
Right,
Yep.
exactly. And so not only, we got backups, we have much higher expectations of data's not going to get lost, performance, being able to use it anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
Multi-connectivity, knowing how many people are on your servers, when something goes down, how to respond to those users, retention. It's the analytics on the actual servers and what's going on there.
And you need to know how many people you're losing that don't come back after an experience like that.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then how to retain them and how to do stuff of that nature. It's
Yeah.
been a great few years.
Well, I think we've only touched the surface of what all we could talk about with this stuff. George and Reggie, would you be interested if we did some follow-up questions?
Oh, that'd be great.
So those of you watching this, if you've got any questions that come to mind from watching this, you want to know more, we'll answer all the questions except for how can I exploit the game better?
Yes. We want to answer.
Yeah, or maybe I'll ask them just in fun and watch them give me blank stares. So we'll do this again in the future. So go ahead and reply with any questions you have, and we'll do it again in the future.
Great.
So
Thanks very
George
much.
and Reggie, yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I've actually learned a lot
been
with
fun.
this. So it's the inner workings that nobody ever thinks about. So yeah, okay,
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
yeah. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.